Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever just stopped and wondered how all the tech around us seems to get smarter, literally every single day? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on how machines actually learn. And it all starts with a question I bet you've asked yourself before. Yeah, seriously, think about it. Your email inbox. How does it magically know to shunt all those junk emails and scams into a spam folder while making sure the important stuff gets to you? It's a perfect everyday example of machine learning doing its thing. So what we're really talking about here is machine learning. And at its heart, it's just a way of teaching computers to learn from experience. Instead of a programmer writing out every single rule, we feed a model tons and tons of data. Its job is to figure out the hidden patterns so it can make smart guesses about new stuff it's never seen. But how does this learning actually happen? Is it some kind of digital magic? Well, not exactly. It really boils down to two main strategies. You could almost call them two different philosophies that machines use to get knowledge from data. And the best way to get your head around these two paths is with a simple analogy. Think of it like this. Is the machine learning with a teacher who's already giving it all the answers, or is it learning more like a detective who has to piece together the clues to solve a mystery? All right, let's dive into that first path, supervised learning. This is our learning with a teacher scenario. Okay, so picture this. You're studying for a big test, but you've been given the official answer key. That's pretty much what supervised learning is. The machine gets a whole data set where every piece of information is already labeled with the correct answer. The whole point is for it to learn the connection between the questions and the answers. You can see it right here in this diagram. On the left, you've got this labeled data being fed to the model. A shape of a triangle paired with the label triangle. The model takes a guess, checks it against the right answer, and then tweaks its own thinking. It does this over and over, thousands, maybe millions of times, until it gets really good at identifying new shapes it's never encountered. And this method is absolutely everywhere. Remember that spam filter? Yep, that's a classic classification task. Or, telling a cat from a dog in a photo? Same thing. But it's not just about sorting things into boxes. It can also predict numbers, like figuring out a house price based on its size and where it is. That's a different trick called regression. So let's get a little more specific. A really popular and surprisingly simple way to do this is with an algorithm called k-nearest neighbors, or just KNN for short. And KNN is so intuitive, right? Look at the image on the left. You've got these two clear groups, category A and B. Then, boom, a new dot shows up. What does the algorithm do? It literally just looks around at its closest neighbors to figure out where it fits in. It's the whole birds of a feather flock together idea, but for data. The whole process is wonderfully straightforward. First, you just pick a number, k, let's say it's 5. Then, for your new mystery point, the algorithm finds its 5 nearest buddies. And if, say, 3 of them are in category A and only 2 are in B, well, guess what? The new point gets labeled as category A. Simple as that. Okay, so that's the teacher. Now let's switch gears and check out the second path. This is unsupervised learning, or learning like a detective approach. But what if you don't have that neat answer key? What happens when the data has no labels at all? You just have this giant, messy pile of information. Now what do you do? And that's exactly where our detective comes in. With unsupervised learning, the whole goal is for the machine to just dive into the data and find interesting patterns and structures all on its own. It's got to find the order in the chaos with no help. And one of the main jobs for this detective is something called clustering. You start with what looks like just a random spray of dots, like you see here. The algorithm's job is to figure out the natural groups. It automatically organizes everything into these distinct clusters based on who's similar to whom. It's like finding hidden communities within the data. And businesses use this for all sorts of things. Grouping customers into different segments to send them the right ads. Or how a shopping website knows that people who buy one thing also tend to buy another. That's finding an association. It can even take super complicated data and boil it down to something much simpler to work with. So just like our teacher had the KNN tool, our detective has a favorite tool as well. It's an algorithm called k-means clustering. Think of k-means as trying to find the center of gravity for different groups in your data. It starts by just guessing where the centers of k clusters might be. Then it assigns every single data point to whichever center is closest. After that, it recalculates the center for each new group. And it just keeps repeating that process. Assign, move the center. Assign, move the center. Over and over until things stop changing and the clusters are nice and stable. So there you have it.
Two totally different approaches, right? The teacher and the detective. But they're both after the same thing, getting knowledge out of data. Let's do a quick side by side to see why this distinction really, really matters.
It really all boils down to this. With supervised learning, the teacher, you're starting with labeled data, and your goal is to predict something specific, like filtering spam. But with unsupervised, the detective, you've got unlabeled data, and the goal is to discover something new, like finding customer groups you never even knew you had. And this quote from the source material just nails it. So the takeaway is this. You bring in the teacher when you know the question and you're looking for the answer. You bring in the detective when you're not even sure what the right questions are yet, and you want the data to surprise you. But, it's not always so black and white. There's actually a middle ground called semi-supervised learning. This is kind of cool. It's where you use a tiny bit of labeled data, just a little hint from the teacher, to help the detective make sense of a huge amount of unlabeled data. Look, at the end of the day, understanding the difference between the teacher and the detective isn't just for data scientists. It helps all of us understand what the AI that's all around us is capable of, and maybe more importantly, what it's not capable of. And that leaves us with a pretty mind-bending thought to chew on. As these detective machines get better and better at learning all on their own, what new, completely unexpected patterns are they going to discover about our world, our behavior, maybe even the universe itself? It's a wild new frontier, and now you know the two main ways we're exploring it. Thanks for joining me.